can't eat this. This stuff is too tiny. I can't get full off this mess.
Have you ever been to a fancy restaurant and thought the plate, though beautiful and incredibly delicious, was a bit small for the amount of cash you had to pay? Well, here are 10 reasons why fancy restaurants serve such tiny portions. You're not the only one paying.
If you're not paying, I'm not paying.
Food costs money, but not just money from your own pocket. Sometimes it seems like we forget that restaurants actually have to pay for the ingredients they put on our plates. While sometimes restaurants can get a lower price for certain ingredients by buying in bulk, that's not exactly the case for many higher-end restaurants with pricey ingredients. Many times, the freshness of the ingredients put onto your plate is just as important as its cost. An example of this is maintaining fresh seafood for daily use. This is understandably more expensive than buying hundreds of frozen fillets. To make a profit, restaurants have to charge more for a plate than they spend making it.
But it's too expensive.
As a 30% markup is standard for a single plate of food, if the portions of fancy food were larger, the hole in your pocket would be too. The price on your menu is a reflection of the money that the restaurant has put into the freshness and quality of the ingredients, as well as the mastery of the chef and staff preparing it. So while the food portions may be a tad smaller than usual, especially for the money you're shelling out for it, it'll be worth it once you have that sensational bite of food in your mouth. Amuse your Bouche.
It's Amuse Bouche for the table.
From fancy dinner parties to top-of-the-line restaurants, the French word amuse-bouche is often used and easily recognized. But did you know that those pesky little appetizers inspired the now-standard 7-course meals that make the price of these restaurants so high? Starting in the 1970s, French chefs began to serve small appetizers along the course of their customers' dinners, so that they would get a sense of the chef's personal style. These small bites quickly became a staple of high-end cuisine. The customers liked the idea of surprise, chef-curated dishes so much that many restaurants began serving only the chef's selection, which turned into the typical 7-course meal many use today: hors d'oeuvre, soup, appetizer, salad, main course, dessert, and mignardise, a bite-sized dessert.
Dessert is served.
To fit all of these different dishes into their patrons' stomachs without increasing their waistlines, each course was only a couple of bites in size. This trend made its way over to the rest of the world and became the standard size for high-end plates everywhere. Instagram ready on a timer.
This one's going straight to Instagram.
Ever seen one of those plates of food that just looks so beautiful you'd rather take a picture of it than eat it? Well, that's exactly one of the reasons the portion is small enough to get that close-up shot. When you go to a higher-end restaurant, there are certain things that are consistent. Everyone's sporting fancy clothes, the chef is probably going to be renowned, the food is a delectable assortment of expensive ingredients you can probably barely pronounce, and the plate always looks amazing. Why? Well, it's actually proven that we eat with our eyes first. If a beautiful plate with bright colors and amazing smells is placed in front of you, you can't help but think it's got to be delicious before even taking a bite.
I can taste it already.
When you're going to a higher-end restaurant, the chefs preparing your meal are culinary artists. They work with a color palette for each plate, they decide how much sauce to put on it and how, and often even use tweezers to carefully place golden flakes, flowers, or other edible garnishes to make that plate a once-in-a-lifetime experience. If you're thinking, that sounds time-consuming, you'd be right. In order to not make every customer wait forever to get a single one of their typical 7 courses, the portions are made smaller to allow a speedier delivery without sacrificing absolutely any of the aesthetic. Feeding the trash can less.
Why waste food?
Waste in the food industry is a definite concern, and, well, not everyone loves trash as much as Oscar the Grouch. and with good reason. An average restaurant loses about 10% of their food supply daily to the trash can. But did you know that it was closer to 30% in our more upper-class establishments? We've already talked about the ingredients for your higher-end plate costing more, but it's that freshness we talked about that is the reason for such a high percentage of daily food waste. Most of us will wait until things go bad before throwing it out. Some of us might even eat things past their best before date if it looks and smells fine.
You can't sell expired food.
Restaurants do neither. While a regular restaurant's main concern when throwing away food is a possible lawsuit, this actually allows them to keep more of their ingredients per day. But luxury-style restaurants are so intent on keeping their ingredients fresh due to the high price tag you're paying that they often throw out barrels of perfectly fine food simply because it doesn't meet their standards for the next day. If they advertise fresh fish caught every morning, then they'll throw out that day's fish at night and replace it with fresh fillets by the morning, ensuring that every bite still has that salty taste of having been in the water only hours prior. To waste less food, restaurants obviously try to buy just what they need for the day and portion it out accordingly, making your portions just a tad smaller than you might like. Good things come in small packages.
The smaller, the better.
Whoever said that bigger is better was just plain wrong. The notion that good things come in small packages is actually backed up by science. Due to common experiences like trying to buy saffron at Costco or buying that diamond ring, psychology says that our brains have actually tricked us into thinking that expensive buys are more justified when whatever we buy is smaller.
Worth it. Totally worth it.
Since so many expensive and high-quality things are out of most of our price ranges, we tend to buy ourselves such things as a sort of reward. Because of this, whatever we buy tends to be small but worth it, like a special ring that survives 3 generations. Expensive restaurants serve up these small plates to appeal to that little voice in our heads that tells us the plate of food is our reward. They leave you wanting more.
Now I want more.
Fancy restaurants don't just make a name for themselves by serving a customer once. In fact, their tiny portions have a very specific purpose. They leave you wanting more. We can dig it. From the restaurant owner to the chef, the line chef, and the waiter, the menu is specially made to leave whoever's tasting it wanting more of whatever it was. While each new course should complement the last and the next, they're so small that when we find that dish that makes us go, wow, it's immediately gone and replaced with another.
Gone! Oh, God.
The restaurant actually depends on 1 or 2 dishes making such a lasting impression. With such small portions, the delicious taste leaves almost as soon as it appears. And with the rest of the courses strutting their stuff in after it, the human body tends to crave more of that one dish instead of moving on to another. But of course, to taste that special dish again, you'll have to dish out another stack of cash. Though the menus in these restaurants tend to rotate pretty often, they're actually hinging on that initial wow factor and the small portions, so you keep making reservations. Taste bud boredom.
Food looks boring, the waiter's ugly.
There's more science behind why fancy restaurants serve such small portions. This time, both biochemistry and human physiology have entered the chat. According to science, our taste buds are lazy. As such, they can get bored if we bother them for too long. Ever noticed how you get tired of certain foods if you eat them over and over again? Well, that's taste bud boredom, and it's what fancy restaurants have learned to avoid with their small portion trick. It only takes 4 to 5 bites of food for our tongues to get bored of a taste. And taste bud apathy does not bring back customers or invite them to shell out extreme amounts of money for food.
Well, I won't pay that.
Instead of letting our taste buds lounge back on their little couches during a meal, expensive restaurants keep them on their toes by providing 4 to 5 bites of a single dish. This way, every bite of the dish feels new and exciting, and the taste doesn't suffer from that pesky science. Everyone knows, though, that 4 or 5 bites isn't a lot of food, hence why the small portions of higher-end food exist. So, if you've got to blame someone, don't blame the restaurants, blame your tongue. The subtlety of flavor.
Yeah, it's very smooth. Good flavor.
Flavor is also one of the main reasons why expensive restaurants serve such small portions of their dishes. On most Food Network shows, you'll see hundreds of renowned chefs taking bites from dishes and letting the food sit on their tongue. Suddenly, they'll start to list off different spices and herbs and oddly named potatoes that you definitely didn't even know existed. Some of these flavors are ridiculously subtle, but when they're combined with the rest of the ingredients in the dish, they can really make it or break it.
Perfect flavor.
The chefs at these high-end restaurants carefully structured the dish so that every one of the 4 to 5 bites that we talked about before tastes exactly the same. Every flavor they've put into this dish has to fit into a single bite that can be replicated over and over again. Preparing 4 or 5 perfect bites is one thing, but curating 200 feels absolutely impossible. While there may not be much quantity, the small portions served to you assure that every bite you take is well worth the money you've paid for the plate. The Psychology of Stereotypes.
Eat a steak either crazy big or crazy small, whichever's more expensive.
By now, we're all aware of the stereotype that the more expensive the meal, the tinier your plate is going to be. But did you know that this stereotype is one of the biggest reasons why these same restaurants don't serve bigger portions? From comedy skits to your dad complaining at dinner, the small portions served at high-end restaurants have been the butt of food-related jokes for decades. It's such a stereotype that we've now come to associate small portions with high-end restaurants and higher quality food than its larger portioned counterparts. Fancy restaurants know that they come with a high price tag, but one of the biggest reasons for a restaurant's success is a good reputation being passed around.
We have a reputation to uphold.
Since people already think that fancy restaurants serve smaller portions of high-quality food, these restaurants actually use psychology to their advantage. By serving up smaller plates, your brain automatically makes a speedy connection that the food must be high quality and good. For a limited time only.
It's for a limited time only kind of situation.
Lazy taste buds and stereotypes aren't the only part of psychology responsible for the small portions restaurants serve up. We can actually partly blame our capitalist ways for this one too. After spending so much money on essentials like soap and water and even electricity, you would think that people would want to spend the least money possible on an essential like food, right? Well, you're right, but this actually still benefits expensive restaurants.
And still make a small profit.
Have you ever seen something on sale and just had to buy it, even if you didn't specifically need it? Well, that's because we see the on-sale item as something that won't come around twice in this lifetime. Just like that sweater you never wear that you bought for half off, or that limited edition sports card you spent a month's rent on because you thought you'd never see it again. The small portions at these fancy restaurants work in a similar way. By serving up such a small portion, these restaurants trick your brain into feeling like the plate is rare. You sort of talk yourself into justifying the purchase because there's less of it and it's expensive, so it has to be worth it. Our brains are wildly tricky, that's for sure. Order up more great videos. Just tap or click and hit that subscribe button and ring that bell to join our notification squad.